Chapter 2. Echo Protocol. Silas sat frozen, the black glass drive still pulsing under his fingertips. A memory file couldn't be future dated. Not unless it was forged, but this wasn't forged. The neural signature was clean, his own, and the timestamp embedded deep in the code, 10 days from now. He pulled out his neurojack, a sleek implant just behind his left ear, and slotted the interface cable. Against every instinct, every rule, he loaded the file. The tension in the air thickened as he felt the familiar hum of the device connecting to his neural pathways. Echo protocol only, he whispered to the reader, his heart racing. No full sync. A low hum vibrated through the table. The lights in the booth dimmed as the memory streamed, not into his consciousness, but across a mirrored neural model. He wasn't reliving the memory, he was watching it. In the memory, the city was burning. He stood in an alley somewhere in the lower east district of Neo-London. Smoke blanketed the skyline, a thick acrid fog that choked the air. Sirens howled in the distance, a mournful wail echoing through the streets. His coat was torn, blood soaked through the collar, and in his left hand, a memory drive identical to the one in front of him. Only this one was cracked. He turned toward someone off screen, a woman. Her face was shadowed by static, the details obscured as if the memory itself was too fragile to reveal her identity. They know, future him whispered, his voice a strained rasp. I tried to warn them. A shot rang out. His chest jerked, pain exploding through his body. He felt the force of it, the sudden shock that stole his breath away. His body fell, collapsing onto the cold pavement, the drive rolling across the ground, glinting ominously in the dim light of the alley. And then, black memory terminated. Silas tore the neurojack from his head, gasping as he stumbled back in the booth, breathing hard, sweat soaking his collar. The reality of what he had just witnessed crashed over him like a tidal wave, a future memory of his own death. He'd heard rumors of tech that could anchor fragments of potential futures into a person's memory chain. Temporal echoes. Illegal, unstable, but real. And someone had implanted one into a drive, then delivered it to him. He had no idea who the client was. No idea who killed him in the memory, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He had 10 days to figure it out. Or he wouldn't just remember his death, he'd live it. The weight of the revelation settled heavily on his shoulders. Silas's mind raced as he paced the small booth, the flickering lights casting shadows that danced like specters on the walls. The implications were staggering. He had always been a pragmatist, relying on facts and logic to guide his decisions. But now he found himself teetering on the edge of a precipice. The ground beneath him shifting unpredictably. He needed to act quickly. The memory was a warning, a glimpse into a future that could be avoided if he played his cards right. But where to start? He had no leads, no idea who was pulling the strings behind this twisted game. Silas glanced at the drive, still lying on the table like a dormant predator. If he could track down the origins of the memory, perhaps he could find a way to alter the course of events before they spiraled out of control. But that meant diving deeper into the murky waters of the memory market, a place inhabited by shadows and whispers, where the line between ally and enemy blurred. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. The first step was clear. He needed information. He left the parlor, the night air cool against his skin. The streets of Neo-London were alive with the vibrant chaos of city life, neon lights flickering against the darkness like fireflies in a storm. Silas moved quickly, weaving through the throngs of people, his mind racing with possibilities. He needed to find someone who could help him navigate the tangled web of memory manipulation. The Gloom District loomed ahead, a place notorious for its dealings in illicit tech and underground networks. It was a hive of scum and villainy, but it was also the best place to find answers. He had contacts there, people who operated in the shadows willing to trade information for the right price. As he stepped into the district, the atmosphere shifted. The air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of danger lurking just beneath the surface. Silas moved cautiously, his senses heightened, scanning the alleyways and doorways for any sign of trouble. He had been in this part of the city enough times to know that appearances could be deceiving. He made his way to a dimly lit bar tucked away in a narrow alley. The sign above the door flickered erratically, casting a sickly glow over the entrance. The Rusty Wrench was a dive frequented by the city's misfits and outcasts, a melting pot of stories and secrets. If anyone had the information he needed, it would be here. Inside, the bar was nearly empty, save for a few patrons nursing their drinks in shadowy corners. Silas approached the bar, where a grizzled bartender wiped down the counter with a rag that looked like it had seen better days. "What'll it be?" The bartender grunted, eyeing Silas with a mix of suspicion and curiosity. "Information," Silas replied, his voice steady. "I need to know about memory drives and temporal echoes." The bartender paused, his expression shifting to one of mild interest. "You're diving into dangerous waters, friend. Not many come looking for that kind of trouble." "I'm aware," Silas said, leaning closer, "but I don't have the luxury of time. I'm looking for someone who can help." The bartender studied him for a moment before nodding slowly. "All right, there's a fixer named Jax who operates out of the back room. He might have what you're looking for. Just be careful he doesn't take kindly to strangers." Silas nodded, grateful for the lead. He made his way to the back room, pushing through a beaded curtain that separated the main bar from the dimly lit space beyond. The atmosphere shifted instantly, the air thick with smoke and the sound of hushed conversations. In the far corner, a figure sat surrounded by a haze of swirling vapor, their face hidden beneath a hood. Silas approached, his heart pounding with anticipation. This was Jax, the fixer renowned for his connections and knowledge of the underground. "Looking for something?" Jax's voice was low and gravelly, laced with a hint of amusement. "Yeah, information," Silas replied, leaning against the table. "I need to know about a memory drive with a temporal echo." "It's complicated." Jax smirked, a glint of interest in his eyes. "Complicated is my specialty. You sure you want to dive into this?" "I don't have a choice," Silas said, feeling the weight of urgency pressing down on him. "I have 10 days before I die. I need to find out who's behind it." The room fell silent, the air thickening with tension. Jack studied him for a long moment before leaning back in his chair, arms crossed. 10 days, huh? You've got yourself in a real mess. "Help me," Silas urged, desperation creeping into his voice. "I need to know what I'm up against." Jax's expression softened slightly, the corners of his mouth turning down. "Fine, but this ain't a free ride. Information comes at a cost." "Name it," Silas replied, steeling himself for whatever price he might have to pay. "Looking for something?" Jax's voice was low and gravelly, laced with a hint of amusement. "Yeah, information," Silas replied, leaning against the table. "I need to know about a memory drive with a temporal echo." "It's complicated." Jax smirked, a glint of interest in his eyes. "Complicated is my specialty. You sure you want to dive into this?" "I don't have a choice," Silas said, feeling the weight of urgency pressing down on him. "I have 10 days before I die. I need to find out who's behind it." The room fell silent, the air thickening with tension. Jack studied him for a long moment before leaning back in his chair, arms crossed. 10 days, huh? You've got yourself in a real mess. "Help me," Silas urged, desperation creeping into his voice. "I need to know what I'm up against." Jax's expression softened slightly, the corners of his mouth turning down. "Fine, but this ain't a free ride. Information comes at a cost." "Name it," Silas replied, steeling himself for whatever price he might have to pay. "First, I want to see that drive. If it's what you say it is, I can help you trace its origins, but I need to verify its contents. Bring it back to me and I'll dig deeper." Silas hesitated, the memory drive still fresh in his mind. It was a risk, but he needed answers. Without a second thought, he nodded and reached for the drive in his pocket. He placed it on the table, the black glass glinting ominously under the dim light. Jax's eyes widened as he examined the drive, his fingers brushing over the surface. "This is illegal tech, Silas. Messing with temporal echoes is dangerous. You don't know what you're getting into." "I don't care," Silas shot back, urgency fueling his words. "I just need to know who did this to me." "All right, let's see what we can find." Jax's voice turned serious and he pulled out a small device, connecting it to the drive. The screen flickered to life, revealing a cascade of data that scrolled past in an instant. As Jax began to analyze the information, Silas felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. He was stepping into a world where the past and future collided, where memories could be rewritten and lives could be destroyed in an instant. The stakes had never been higher. "Here we go," Jax muttered, his brow furrowing as he delved deeper into the data. "Looks like this drive has been passed through multiple hands. Whoever owned it last is a ghost. No real identity, just a series of aliases." "Can you trace it?" Silas asked, leaning forward, desperation creeping into his voice. "It's complicated," Jax replied, biting his lip as he scrolled through the data. "But there's a pattern here. It's connected to a network of memory forgers who operate outside the law. They deal in black market tech, specializing in altering past experiences and implanting false memories. Silas's heart raced. And one of them is responsible for this? Possibly, Jack said, his voice low. But it's more likely that whoever set this up is using them as a front. You'll need to dig deeper if you want to uncover the truth. Where do I start? Silas pressed, unwilling to let the lead slip away. Follow the trail of the last known owner, Jax instructed, his fingers flying across the screen. They were last seen in the Gloom District, frequenting a place called the Mind's Eye. It's a dive where people go to explore their memories or fabricate new ones. It's dangerous, but it might lead you to the answers you seek. Silas nodded, determination burning in his chest. Thank you, Jax. I'll head there now. Just be careful, Jax warned, his expression serious. This isn't a game. You're dealing with people who don't play by the rules. If you get too close, you might find yourself in more trouble than you can handle. I'm counting on it, Silas replied, steeling himself for the journey ahead. As he left the bar, the weight of the memory drive in his pocket felt heavier than before. He was stepping into a world of shadows and deceit, but he couldn't afford to back down. The clock was ticking, and if he wanted to change his fate, he had to confront the truth head-on. End of Chapter 2.